Shalom, shalom. This is Harwood. Alright, I'm about to do a reading on this book I just got. It's called Giants on Record: America's Hidden History, Secrets in the Mounds, and the Smithsonian Files. I'm gonna read this little insert that Flavius Josephus left 93 AD. There were till then left the race of giants, who had bodies so large and countenances so entirely different from other men, that they were surprising to the sight and terrible to the hearing. The bones of these men are still shown this very day, unlike to any credible relation of other men. All right. Um, this is what I'm gonna say to y'all before I start reading this. Chew the meat, throw away the bone. The reason why I'm telling y'all this is because the little insert I just read that Josephus put in, when I start reading what I'm going to read, it's actually going to contradict what he just said. Because remember, he said these giants were different to any man, right? That's what I just read. All right. So I'm going to read this to y'all, and when I get to certain parts, I'm going to stop and read something else or read out of the Bible, the scriptures to y'all. All right, here we go. The tall ones. Some water. Giants on Record and is an outgrowth of the internet age, coupled with solid research endeavors, the old-fashioned way of hands-on detective work. So many libraries, museums, private residences, and cemeteries have been visited in our efforts that if you added on all the interviewing of knowledgeable, people, the list would go on for pages and pages. Jim and Bill Vieira, Hugh Newman, and prolific researcher Mackay Ewers are like lions that have championed the out cause of the continuing retrieval of information dealing with an overly fantasized, intellectually marginalized, and professionally ostracized sector of humanity. These four men and others who share their vision are doing something that literally requires courage to dare present publicly publicity. I'm sorry, publicity in this age of academically controlled archaeologists. So you just said these archaeologists are academically controlled, meaning that they can't do everything they want to do or say what they want to say. In a fairer world, our researchers would without doubt have benefited from the keyed in professors of anthropology who would already have thoroughly documented the existence, tenure, I said existence, extensive tenure of the tall people in ancient Americas, Europe, and places of the East. Notice they said America first, though. Just want to make sure y'all heard that. However, by some strange twisting about of luck, probably reflecting a mediocre development of social justice and intellectual honesty, it has become the responsibility of our researchers to bear the burden, substantiating, can never say these words no more, and a populace who often stood upwards from 7 feet in height with proportionated figures. More to the point, the professional ethologists of the world should perhaps be explaining the missing skeletons along with loss of context supporting the tall people's existence, not us. Just about to really mess y'all heads up when I really get into this paragraph. Y'all really gonna be kind of shocked where he gonna go with this. And it's funny because a sister, she was always saying it to me, but I mean I listened to her, but I just never saw it anywhere. But now I do, and I'm like, oh wow. Okay, so and missing they are. For a number of sound reasons, the bones are hardly accessible for the court of research science. These reasons included the fanatical leveling of scores of thousands of Indian graves. Let me read that again. These, let me read the whole thing again. For a number of sound reasons, the bones are hardly accessible for the court of research science. These reasons include the fanatical leveling of scores of thousands of Indian graves, beginning in the earliest colonial times, seeking artifacts to sell as well as clear the land for farming and towns. So they're finding these giant bones in Indian grave sites. Isn't that something? The chemically delicate condition of the older skeletons is noted in some of the accounts as the blackened process of oxygen. What is this? Wow, disintegrated the bones. I don't know why I couldn't catch that one. Disintegrated the bones before the eyes of the exhuming parties. But there was also the silly practice of uh, dearculation. Heck, I just lost where I was at. Dearculation to isolate the skulls and long bones of large size for turnover to collectors, uh, curating, I can't get these words, parties. But there was also the silly practice of, oh, I just read that, sorry. The long bones, oh God, I just lost where I was at. Skulls, long bones, size, turnover, evidence, okay. Oh, okay. Curating evidence of anomalies. Add to these points the dark aspects of racial prejudice, and the understanding that Native people were without rights, alive or dead. So, if you or understand what I'm reading, they're telling that these giants were natives, and they were just, you know, destroying their graves and stealing whatever they could and selling their body parts and everything, dead and alive, I guess. Well, the dead, and you know what they were doing to us. Okay. And you have a mojo cocktail of white sacralism that would disorient even the most sober and reliable jurist. Oh man, these people are something else. And this is no joking matter, for so repressed has this information been that it bellies the public knowledge, something that should be unconceivable today. These forgotten folk, many to whom would be as giants if they walked among us now, live not only in America's past, but, as other evidence points, many other parts of the ancient world. As Hugh explains ahead, some of their stories are so very old they have reverted to legend, folk tradition, classical myth, and even fable. Our work here is a straightforward attempt at restoring to the light of common acceptance and evidence existence of these people, as becomes obvious in much of Hugh and Jim's chronicles, peerage social systems, featuring men and women of large stature in a pure content America, prolific among our best sources They coupled with an a stout expose of a concerted effort within within an early 20th century national museum to apparently do away with the bones and falsely declare these people never existed, has placed our efforts more in the frame of a service worthy for the sake of an historical narrative. So you got people trying to prove that these people exist, and then you have another people that's pretty much trying to say that they didn't exist, so they can keep their clamp on the world, like they have it now. There was a sort of cottage industry mania in the later 19th century, a craze that was so alarmed the National Museum and related concerns that they took it upon themselves to upturn, loot, and leave to the elements the great majority of the remaining Indian cemeteries throughout the east and central United States. The only criteria was that they showed some promise of significant artificial caches. Yeah. In perspective of the time, the universities had not yet developed any archaeological programs, so all was by undertaken by interested men, including fortunately some trained physicians and others of background in the science of the time, although their activities weren't inclusive enough. By means of disciplines involved to stem the tide of bigotry, mm, and lose of compassion for native folk, it has helped us a modicum. That's what it says, modicum to get a reasonable grasp on the enormity of the problem. Yes, native people were often considered to be somewhat subhuman, a dark projection that is even today in the process of complete eradication. Now we appeal to the reader to take a moment to reflect on the ease with which the undercurrents of early American racial discrimination influenced the public imagination to the point of permitting settled efforts at writing history with extreme prejudice. So right there, he just told you who the Indians are. He just told you who the natives of this land is. So for everybody running around talking about we African Americans, something's wrong with you. Because I'm quite sure if you read these books and you still think you came from Africa, you have a mental problem. That means you can't understand what you're reading. These people are literally telling you that the native people were treated with prejudice. You show me a person that they say a Native American get treated the way we do. They don't. I mean, a lot of our people can't understand that they have came here. Well, I'm gonna put it like this: they didn't do it by their own power. They were allowed to do it, and actually, it's going to tell you in here that they were allowed to do it. But our Creator, the Most High, allowed them to come here and do this to us because of what we were doing. So that's the one thing. But the thing is, they came here, and He also said that they're going to do way worse than what He told them to do, and that's where they're being pretty much everything they're doing is being written down. So all these murders, all these killings, all these negative things they're saying, all the stuff that they're saying, it's being taken down. You can believe that. According to the native accounts, the early French and Spanish, as well as not a few of the sources documenting the physical conditions of the native relationship remains. These people were by and large commonly and attractive to the eye. Okay, I'm gonna read that again. Let's see. According to the native accounts, the early French and Spanish, as well as not a few of the sources documenting the physical condition of the native leadership remains. These people were by and large, commonly and attractive to eye. Some of their ancient folk traditions held that they were, as claim also some traditional Japanese descendants were descendants from a race of divinely endowed beings, but had through disgrace lost the mastery of the earth and sky. Who does that sound like? Devolving rapidly to plain mortals. Remember, now if you read the stories of the Greeks, they tell you that there was a land that no man could go to, the land of the gods. If this, dude, please don't get on here and leave me a comment talking about, oh, the Creator said we're not God. I don't want to hear that. I'm just telling you what is written in history. There's a land that, if you read any ancient Greek histories or mythology, they talk about this land that no one could get to, and it was the land of the gods. So all I'm saying, if you read the story of what's his name, Jason and the Argonauts and the other lands, those other stories where these guys got on seas and stuff, and went on journeys. It talks about that. That's all I'm saying. You don't know what the Most High called us, because our scriptures, our what was left, everything, our history was taken apart and rewritten in a book and said it's for everybody. So you really, to be honest with you, we don't even know if the Bible's telling it. Well, we know the Bible ain't telling everything truly, because they changed it so they can fit in it. So just think about that. And this right here is actually going to show you that they changed stuff a lot. All right, where was I at? All right, tradition. All right. All right. At a time not as long ago as one might believe, see that? And I tell you, where it says they thought to change times, seasons, and date. Remember, that's what it says in the scriptures. Remember, so they changed everything. All right, where was I at? I hate when I lose stuff. Okay, not as long as one might believe. A wiser humanity steward the earth. What were we supposed to do in the scriptures? Isn't that what it said? Yeah. To the condition of a true paradise. Hello. The people, fauna, and flora lived far longer than now, and as they became older, they continued to grow incrementally. The period of a person's youth took a very long time to fade. That's why, and even though it was taken from us, even though they told you that Montezuma was, I think he said he was like 70 years old or something, but he looked like he was like 30 or 40. But that's nothing compared to what we used to look like. We were brung down really low. And you want to hear something funny? So just I don't know, just don't I don't want nobody to get upset, but just think about this. Think about, imagine if these fallen angels that the Creator's talking about, imagine it. Just think, what if it was us, the ones that went into the lower beings? You see what I'm saying? If we did that, we went and made it with the lower beings, and we're the ones that got thrown down and punished. You ever thought about that? You know what I'm saying? Because now that you're starting to find out all these, like, what we starting to realize, what these angels, a lot of these angels aren't even human based. I mean, they can turn into humans, but a lot of them are dragons, and different beings of light. I mean, yeah, they can change into a man, but I don't know, y'all. I'm just saying, it's just something to think about. Because you got to think, they took and changed everything. So everything is written in English. They had to put their little twist on it. So who's to say that there were angels above us? Who's to not say that we were the angels? We were the higher beings that went into the lower beings, and we weren't supposed to. See what I'm saying? Just think about it. All right, where was I at? Okay. Yeah, okay, persecute. Okay, so it says they stated that the bones belonged to the um, one of the big buffaloes which roamed over the plains during the times of their fathers. That at that period the happy hunting ground was on earth, but was afterward removed beyond the clouds. I'm gonna say it again. They stated that the bones belonged to one of the big buffaloes which roamed over the plains during the time of their fathers. That at that period the happy hunting ground was on earth, but was afterward removed beyond the clouds by the Great Spirit to punish his children for bad conduct. Okay, hold on. In fact, hold on. No. Let me keep going. There was a hollowing element stirring by the wind and the waters in those days that is all but absent today. I'm going to read that again. There was a hollowing element stirring by the wind and waters in those days that is all but absent today. So there's something missing. It it is remembered across the globe as, hold on. It is remembered across the globe as manna or manna, by means which nature achieved true balance with the archaeological arts of spiritually enhanced landscape millennia ago. The manna rose as the source of vital sustenance, impregnating vegetation, revealing all vestigial aspects, allowing very tall and well endowed people to appear for a time and thrive. All this has been taken from our comprehension as we struggle with restoring the subconscious memory of our humanity. Yeah, y'all just heard the difference what they said about what it's saying about manna. All right, let me read this to y'all. Hold on. Okay, this book is heavy. Hold on, I got you. Give me a second. All right. All right, here we go. This is Numbers 11 and 1. Now the people complained in the hearing of the Lord when he heard it, his wrath, flared up, so that the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. But when the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died out. Hence, that place was called Taberah. Dropped was speaking about this. I remember he did a video about Taberah, because there was a fire of the Lord burned among them. The foreign elements among them were so greedy for the meat that when even the Israelites lamented again. You know what, y'all? That's crazy. That's funny that most I just put this in my head. Pay attention to this. The foreign elements among them were so greedy for the meat that even the Israelites lamented again. Would that we had meat for food. Listen to this. Who put greed in us? It wasn't us. That's not natural in us. If we didn't have to work and do the stuff we had to do to live, we wouldn't be doing half the stuff we do. So it's telling you right here that these foreign elements, these foreign people among us were so greedy. What are they so greedy for now? Money. And what are we so greedy for now? Money. Stuff. Everything that they love, we love. So It show you that we kind of have like a followers type of spirit, like a sheep spirit, because we always following behind somebody. You see that? That's crazy that he said that the foreign elements among them was so greedy for meat. At that time, it was about food, I guess, because they were in a wilderness, that we started lamenting for them, crying for meat. See what I'm saying? Same thing now. These people are so greedy for money, gold, and everything else. Look what we do. Oh, we need this. Oh my God, I need a pair of Gucci shoes. I need this. You seen a lady on the thing crying over a Gucci store. This is that. That's what they did. They put this stuff in us. They got us acting just like them. That's why he says separate from them, so we would stop acting like them. Now, let me keep going. Would that he had meat for food. We remembered the fish we used to eat without cost in Egypt, and the cucumbers, melons, and leeks, the onions and the garlic. But now we are famished. We see nothing before. We see nothing before us but this manna. Manna was like the, what is that? Coriander seed, and had the appearance of, I'm not gonna say that word. When they had gone about to gather it up, the people would grind it in between millstones and pound it into mortar, then cook it in a pot and make it into loaves, which taste like cakes made with oil. At night, when the dew fell upon the camp, the manna also fell. So it's telling you in the scriptures that this manna was some type of food or something like that, right? But in here, it's telling you that this manna, by means which nature achieved true balance, which archaeological arts of spiritual and enhanced landscape millennia ago, the manna rose as the source of vital sustenance. Vital sustenance. Remember, that's all they were eating were manna, impregnating the vegetation, revealing all vestigials aspects, allowing very tall and well endowed people. You see that? And they keep going. Now, this also may have been important point to grasp. Without the manna in the water, soil, and air vitalizing and perfecting the living plants and trees, the people in time saw their orenda degrade and potency and dissipate. Dissipate. Likened to the East Indian ojas, orenda, was in the part definable as the most spirited essence born of nourishment, enabling the performance of the otherwise formidable tasks intellectually and physically. The progressively retreating power of the divine orenda in short order restricted the vision of the internal world, and in remarkable brief period the general populations descended from passion of supern oh God, I can't say this word, wisdom to simple human traits. It's pretty much like you're extremely intelligent. I can't say the word though. I hate when that happens. It is said, as well as the spiritual power, as well that this spiritual powers loss, whose loss was hastened through the sexual sporting with both sexes, responsible for the laxity. They found themselves diminishing in stature, diminishing in years, but perhaps with all tall, the greatest loss of all was memory, a senility that seems to have affected the entire human race. I doubt that. It affected us. They suppose their ancestors to have been more perfect, both in intellectual and bodily information, than the present race. You hear that? They were of very large stature, both men and women, attributed in part to their abstinence from sexual intercourse during the early years of life. In those days, the men at 100 years were equal to those of the present race at 70. A gradual degeneration has at last brought them to their present state, and is now working imperceptibly, sorry y'all, I can't say these words, among all the Indian tribes. All the Indian tribes is working among all the Indian tribes. It didn't say it's working among all the Europeans, the Chinese, the Bangladesh Indians. Yeah, that's the only way I could describe them. And well, all white people, they all those races they call themselves. They just one race though. The Africans, it's saying all the Indian tribes. Vine Delora in Red Earth, White Lies. Let's read that again. Vine Deloria in Red Earth, White Lies notes that even within the memory of some Indian people, the age of 200 years was obtained, and perhaps not uncommonly, after the de-engagement of the Manitou system, gathering arms of linear earthen and stone walls punctuated with artificial mounds and terminus caves to polarize and convert the land's magnetic flows in maintenance of the manna. The people knew great difficulty, wanting for the restablement of the reliability potent Orienda. A similar story seems to have happened throughout prehistoric Britain and around the world, where standing stones, dolmens, and temple structures were operated by people who yet grasped the workings of a very stable yet understated magnetic field. So guess what? That last sentence, she just put a little twist on it. But that just told you right there. This is talking about us. This is all about us. The tradition of tall people in America, the bones that have found evidence for the ones the anthropologists of museums curators say never existed. Of course they would say they never existed. Were in feasible theory those of the generations that had instituted the protocols of the selective marriage to stay the will of nature. In this way, it is believed they may have at least outwardly retained some resemblance of their revered forebears of preceding millennia. But it was also held, it would seem, that their children's Orenda was hopefully kept, preserved by the means, the creation of lineages. And so the offspring of the noble class were carefully protected against worldly influences. Okay, until a certain age. I'm going to read that again. Hopefully kept preserved by the means, the creation of lineages, all right, by the means, and so the offspring of the noble class were carefully protected against worldly influences until a certain age. 1492. Nevertheless, and although it seems to have worked to keep strength and tallness in families, selective mating in hindsight crafted an artificial suspension, an effort that postponed what nature, odds on, would otherwise have dedicated as fated. Yet it is fortunate for us to have been left these important clues as artifacts that, suitably discerned, leave us with working answers pertinent to the origins of the tall ones, as a once worldwide social phenomenon. Measurements taken of the skeleton while still in the grave indicated an individual approximately 7 foot 2 tall would have been a splendid figure in any society, and and the darling of a primitive basketball team. The bones we have uncovered seem large to us. 7 footers can even be imposing even on a professional basketball court. It seems quite apparent the indigenous people had been practicing deliberate and selective intermarriages among the families that had tall members, a social phenomena in some respects, akin to some European royal families in centuries past. Unlike the European, however, instead of seeking out wealth and power as a first cause, the native folk of the eastern woodlands sought robust physicality as a motive for establishing their leaders, this being an indication of descended from a venerable stock of elite status known to exhibit administrative talents. It was from these people that their public figures were developed, wealth and power coming along in due course. So that right there just told you our people didn't seek what they seek. That's how we learned how to chase after this bull crap that we've been chasing after. This is why we crave this bull crap that we kill each other for. We kill each other for pieces of trees and everything else. They tell you right there, we didn't even think about that stuff. We looked at people in statue for their statue and stuff. You had a pretty much he said that the Europeans, those people, the first thing they did was chase wealth. They looked, you are somebody of any status if you have money. Isn't that what's happening right now? Isn't that the way we are now? If you ain't got no money, you ain't no good man. If you ain't got no money, you ain't this. It's all about what you got. And that's sad. Because there's real men that can teach their sons how to be men. Teach their sons how to grow vegetables, build houses and stuff like that. But a lot of our women say, you're not a man because you don't have money. I'm not talking about all the women, but the ones that does it, they know who they are. A lot of men get separated from their children because they don't have money. Are you serious? And then you wonder why your son's growing up being faggots and all that other stuff. Now you know. Alright, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed that one. Shalom.